Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining the call to review the draft tariff language for the Real-Time Settlement Review Initiative. This is Christina Osborne with ISO Stakeholder Affairs. I'm going to be managing the web conference. John Andrews, who's here from legal, he's actually the lead on the tariff process. So we have cleaned up the language since we last posted it on November 5th, and the plan is to review those changes with you during this call. So John's going to go over that with you. And we are also planning to post the version that we're reviewing during the call pretty soon, so it should be available on the initial webpage shortly. So also on the line, we have James Friedrich, Fred Cooper, Katie McCuska, James Lynn, and Heather Kelly from the ISO. So what we'll do is we go through this language. If you do have a question at any time, please feel free to raise your hand. You can do that by pressing #2. Just a reminder to start by introducing yourself. We are also recording this call, and we will make that recording available to all of you out on the initial webpage once we receive that from AT&T. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to John Andrews.
Yeah, thanks, Christina, and good morning, everyone. And Christina pointed out something interesting to me that I wasn't familiar with, and it's on the left. There's a tab where you can scroll through the document and follow along with the changes, because I guess we each individually have control as opposed to centralized control with one of the presenters. Is that correct, Christina?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I forgot about that. So yeah, if you want to scroll down the document or zoom in and out, you will need to do that on your end. So you can either use that little toolbar on the left or the scroll bar on the right-hand side of the document. So thank you, John. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. And I'll call out where we're at as we move, through the document. So we did post this version. There are some incremental changes we'll talk about that the ISO is proposing on its own initiative to clarify and enhance the accuracy. We'll go over those. But in general and overall, we did not receive any specific comments or edits to the draft tariff language. So we'll go through this today, and then we'll, like I said, repost this version, and then we'll seek, further comments. I think we're relatively close to having it right, but we're welcome to comments on this revised version. We may or may not have another call to go over everything, but we'll make that judgment based on the comments that we receive from stakeholders. So with that, the proposed tariff changes to implement the real-time settlement initiative are fairly minimal. We are just at the outset, we're not proposing anything in the tariff with regard to the metrics that we have proposed and discussed with stakeholders, but we will be facilitating, the ongoing review of those metrics as we described in the proposal, and reviewing those with stakeholders, in the appropriate forums. But here in the tariff, we have the first change. It actually appears on page 2 of the document, and it's to the real-time bid cost recovery provisions, and we just made the one change, and that is the change to the denominator here for adjusting the bid cost recovery according to the EIN transfers, and here we've replaced a number of provisions, UIE, unrestricted amounts of energy, and unaccounted for energy, with basically the imports and exports language that was talked about in the proposal, and we've used the tariff-defined terms, which is balancing authority areas, EIM, measured demand being the same as loads and exports. And so that's the only change to implement the EIM transfer bid cost recovery adjustment that was discussed in the policy initiative. With that, I think I'll open it up for questions, and if any of the policy team, if James wants to add anything to that, they're welcome to it, but we'll open it up for questions on the bid cost recovery proposed changes.
So again, if you have a question, you can raise your hand by pressing pound 2.
Yes. All right, we don't have any questions in the queue currently.
Okay.
Okay.
Page 6, John?
Yeah, so if you click down into page 6 towards the bottom. So now we've moved from section 11 of the CAISO tariff, which is where the bid cost recovery settlement provisions are. We've moved into section 2911 of the tariff, which is where the EIM specific tariff provisions are documented. And here is where we are accounting for the settlement, both the settlement of unaccounted for energy and the settlement if the EIM entity elects not to settle unaccounted for energy. Here you'll see blue shading, and that is to reflect incremental changes the ISO is proposing on its own initiative since the initial draft was posted. These do clarify and make this more accurate. I'll talk about those, but essentially in subsection A, it's the language that's currently in the tariff, except there's a heading for to denote the subsection A. Basically, it's providing CAISO will settle the unaccounted for energy at the real-time hourly lap price. And then under B is where we have the new provision, what happens if the entity elects not to settle unaccounted for energy. So here we've provided for an annual election by the EIM entity scheduling coordinator. And the key here is that in order to qualify for this election, the EIM entity scheduling coordinator needs to submit meter demand, meter data essentially, that they've collected through metering devices and approved load profiles, but that they're not collecting that meter data from end-use meters, which are essentially the end-use customer load meters. And if that is the case, then they may elect not to settle unaccounted for energy. And that was the policy change. And then if they do make that election, then we need to go down to page 7. Then here's where the settlement and how that works, and the ISO is going to apply its 0% transmission losses factor when calculating the initial base load schedule, and then the scheduling coordinator will apply a 0% transmission loss factor when calculating their meter demand, and then that should, as I understand it, cancel out the unaccounted for energy settlement. So those are the changes to account for the settlement of this option. There's other, I think there's other provisions in section 2934, but we'll stop here and see if there's any questions about this option and the settlement of it.
Will, do we have anybody in the queue?
Looks like we have one question in the queue.
Okay.
All right, your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hello, this is Sandra Morris from Bank and SMUD. I just have a question about the election to not settle the UFE. I know that the tariff does yearly, but for this first year, when this gets enacted next year, do you have an idea about when our deadline will be to make that election? You know, for the first year it's in production?
Sure. So we were thinking that it would be annually, so we should facilitate a process to make the election between here and its implementation, which would be April 1, so in the first quarter. But then after that, we're thinking that it should be done in, say, the last quarter, so before the end of the year. But the timelines associated with that election, we were going to publish in the business practice manual. But you're right, for this first year, we should provide for that election sort of off cycle, if you will, because of that April 1 implementation, and then after this year it would go to a normal cycle, and it would be prior to the beginning of the year, and for a new EIM entity we could implement that through their their implementation process. Even though they're not in production, they could make that election during implementation prior to the end of the year, and that would be part of the settlements calculations and all the other simulations that go into the implementation of a new EIM entity. So that's what we're thinking. We haven't written that out here in the tariff. We were thinking that was all a business practice manual level detail, but we're open to comments on that if you have anything.
Okay. No, that sounds very reasonable. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to be before the end of the year, in which case we kind of needed to get on our analysis of it to make our decision. So that was my only question. So that answers it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, no, I think given where we are, I think we need to account for this startup year, as I explained. So we'll do that in a BPM change. Please move forward with any analysis you need to do to make your elections, and once we publish those timeframes, we'll want to get those elections implemented, as soon as possible. James, Settlement James, Mr. Lynn, any comments on that, or Heather, that I'm missing from an implementation perspective?
This is James Lynn. Your description was perfect, so we will take care of it through the process as we're going through market simulation, and then we will outline it within the BPMs on what that process is. So yes, we just still need to finalize the process.
Okay, thanks, James. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah.
No other questions in the queue.
Okay.
Want to go to 13, John?
Yeah.
13.
Thanks, Christina.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So the next section is, again, here in section 29.11. It's on page 13 if you scroll down, and this is the companion settlement provision to the settlement, mandatory settlement of the EIM transfer system resource deviations and all that. So here we've eliminated the need to provide the agreed upon location because it's defined, and the requesting or providing such information, and then the details are really in this subsection R, where we have enumerated the different elements that will happen in order to have settlement of the energy transfer schedule changes from the base. And here we've just edited the original provision to reflect the proposal to make this a requirement, and that the ISO will establish these unique EIM transfer system resource locations, and then we'd associate those locations with a system resource, and that system resource would be used to account for the transfer schedule changes. And then you have to go over to the next page, and then we would basically require the EIM entity scheduling coordinators to submit base schedules and E-tags that identify the transfer schedule changes at that resource location, and then we would essentially ignore any schedule changes that were not associated with that pricing location. So these are the details around the implementation of that proposed change or policy, if you will. And I guess at this point, I'll just open it up for any questions on that.
Any questions in the queue, Will?
Looks like we have one question.
Okay.
Your line's been unmuted. Please go ahead.
Good morning. This is Brian Millard from Portland General. I have to apologize. And I missed a part of the election conversation. I have one clarifying question on that. For the April 1st, 2021, I think start date, that's going forward, correct? It wouldn't be looking back to January 1st, 2021 for that election cycle. It's just April 1st, 2021 going forward, and then the full election process will occur after, right?
I believe that's how it would have to work, Brad, because we won't have these tariff changes in effect for the start of 2021. So I think and you're talking about the UFE election, right? So
yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to clarify that there wouldn't be a retro for that 3-month period, that it would just be April 1st going forward for at least the 2021 election period, and then 2022 and on, it will be the beginning of the year.
That's my understanding. Yeah, we would not have authority to implement that settlement change on January 1. It won't be effective until April 1.
Great, thanks.
So John, this is James Lynn. Any necessary configuration changes in order to comply with the tariff would also have to be made and be effective April 1st. So yes, it will not go back to 1/1. It will be April 1st going forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions at this time?
No further questions.
Okay.
Again, you'll have to scroll down. Yeah. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. No, I just have to scroll down now to the bottom of page, what is it, 12, 14? 14.
14, yeah.
So this is the final piece of the puzzle for the settlement of the EIM transfer system resource changes. So here we're specifying the pricing locations, and the blue shading are 2 incremental changes that were proposed since the draft was posted, and then we've eliminated the RTIEO, real-time imbalance energy offset, because that is no longer applicable. Just the real-time bid cost recovery is applicable as a contribution to the base transfer system resources. So I think that's it, Christina, for the changes that we're proposing in this initiative.
Yeah. Any other questions? Again, press pound 2.
Still not seeing any questions in the queue.
Okay. So, John, we are posting this version, right? We're going to be posting this version?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we can post this version as the updated draft. I will work with Jackie and clean up. I don't like having, you know, double red lines. I mean, it's fine when they're shaded in blue or whatever, but we'll clean that up and get this posted for, you know, and notice it for further comment, I guess. And this is going to the EIM governing body in, I guess it's December 2nd or 3rd, something like that.
Second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So has anybody else entered the queue, Will, before we conclude the call?
No more questions.
Okay. Great. So like John said, we'll post, he's going to clean it up a little bit more, but we'll post a revised language and then issue a market notice if you do want to comment, you know, provide any comments on this version. We'll include, you know, how to submit those comments in the market notice. But with that, appreciate your participation today, and hope you all have a great holiday next week. So thank you, Will.
All right, that will conclude our conference. Thank you for using AT&T Event Conferencing Enhanced. You may now disconnect.